kind of the moment of truth. So you can see the way that this jig is sloped here. So we want to put our pieces in with that same kind of slope. So we put this one in here. Sometimes the glue gets kind of caught up in here and it makes this a little snug. But if you plane this down to 3/4, it'll fit in here just perfect. So we want to just put that in. We want to push it all the way up tight. We want to put this one in and we want to push it all the way up tight. Make sure it's all the way up against the back here. Okay, and then we're ready to start putting our pieces on. So that's the first moment of truth. Next comes, how did you do drilling your holes? If you drilled your holes, measured, marked, and drilled them in the right spot, they should fall right in the middle of these supports. So you put your first one on, make sure you slide it all the way up against the end, and you put 2 spacer blocks in. Grab your next one, set that one on, push it up tight. Again, all the while you're checking to see that your holes line up here. Put 2 more spacer blocks in. Put your next piece on. So far so good, Caden. And then put your last set of spacer blocks. And now we're ready to tighten this up. So what I would recommend you do is, I would recommend you tighten this either one spot or the other. With this one, I have this extra little spacer block here. We'll just tighten this end one down because that one's kind of critical. So we just put this little clamp here. It'll just kind of hold everything in place. And we want to tighten that down as much as we can. Now you'll notice this is a little bit wiggly on the end because we're minus that other clamp. If we have both of the clamps, we could take the other one and we could tighten it down, and then it wouldn't be so wiggly. All right, but you do need this spacer block with this one. I'm going to buy a few more of those. So this is the initial setup. Now we want to grab our drill. Make sure we have the countersink bit on our drill. Okay, this first hole that we drill, we want to put this first hole at a little bit of an angle back towards the seat. Why do you suppose we want to do that? Yeah. Yeah, this support is angled, but also, is this hole kind of close to the end of your piece? Yeah, it's pretty close, right? And if we tip it back this way at all, what's it probably going to do to the end of that piece?
It's going to make it diagonal.
Well, it'll make it diagonal, and then it'll probably do what to the piece of wood? Probably split it, right? Which we don't want. So on these ends, this very first hole, we want to put that on just a little bit of an angle back towards the seat. We want to make sure that we've got it straight up and down this way. We don't want to tip it this way or that way, so you've got to kind of stand over it and make sure that you're going in nice and square. A little bit of an angle, and then we just want to go down until this countersink area gets right near the surface. We're not trying to make that hole any bigger than it already is, okay? And then we come over here, and same thing, we want to put that on just a little bit of an angle till we get right to the surface. Now we're ready to just go right up the row here. We want to make sure we're keeping this straight up and down. We want to drill all the way down right till we get to that countersink area. Don't stop the drill in the hole. Pull it all the way back out. Make sure we're staying straight up and down perpendicular. And then we can come over here and we can go right up the row. It works a lot better if you set this jig up so it's right here in front of you. That way you can kind of stand over the top of it as you drill these holes. So it's a relatively quick process to do that. Now that I've got all the holes drilled, I'm going to loosen my clamps back up. Just want to set those aside. Take this back off the top. Now this is very important. When you take these off, take them off and set them on the end in the same order that you took them off. Why do you suppose that's important to do that? To set them in order like that?
You don't mix them up
We don't want to mix them up. Why?
with the hole size.
Yeah, those holes, even though we measured and marked them in supposedly the same place, there's going to be a little variation in those holes. So if we don't set them in this order, we could essentially not have our holes lined up when we put this back together. So we just want to kind of blow that off a little bit. You can even just wipe it off with your hands. Next step then is we want to take one of these glue bottles. Some of them have glue really clogged up in the tip. If that's the case, sometimes we have to pop this off. And we want just a dab. So we kind of joked in 6th hour, a dab will do. So we just want a little dab like that. Everybody see that? Just a little tiny dab of glue. Why do we want to put just a dab? Why wouldn't we spread it all over that, you think?
Because if it's more than enough, it will squeeze out the side.
Yeah, if we put too much on here, where's it going to squeeze out? It's going to squeeze out all over the sides, right? And if it squeezes out all over the sides, then we got a big mess. And then when we go to stain it, that glue is going to prevent the stain from soaking in. So I flipped them off in the correct order. So now I'm just going to put them back on, and I'm going to stand these back up. So I just flip it back over, put the next one on, flip this one over, the spacer's back in there, make sure that I kind of push it down, snug it up nice and tight, put my last 2 spacers on, flip this last one over, and now I'm ready to lock my clamp back down. Now, it's a good idea to do this with a partner because sometimes you get going and you kind of forget something. 2 eyes are always better than, or excuse me, 4 eyes are always better than 2. 2 people looking at it are always better than 1. So it helps if you have a partner that's kind of standing here working through this with you, and then you can turn around and reciprocate the favor when that person's ready to do their task. So, next, notice how I wrote on the boxes, seat. These are shorter screws. These are only 1 1/4 inches long. Why is it important that we use shorter screws on this piece, do you think? Yeah.
So it doesn't go through the back of the piece.
Yeah, if we use screws that are too long, it's going to puncture right through the bottom of this seat, and then when we go to hold this seat or lock it in place, we're going to have screws poking out the bottom, and they might give us a little poke down our fingers. So what I like to do is just pour some out there, and then take them and set them up right in row here on your seat, and that way you can kind of fasten them down in a pretty good order. So this first seat, the first piece down here on the bottom, it's kind of important that you do 1 piece at a time and you kind of alternate back and forth. So after you set these up, that's another reason it's a good idea to have a partner. You grab the drill now with the fastener bit on it. So we want to start slow. I've adjusted this clutch already. Remember in the video we talked about it can be adjusted to the drill setting, or it can be adjusted to the fastener setting, which is probably on these a 4.5 or a 5. And then we're ready to start. So we want to lock it in the head of the screw first. Start slow. Make sure you've got 1 hand up top, 1 hand on the trigger that you're pushing down steady. And then when it gets down to the bottom where that screw is tight, the clutch will slip and you'll know that's as far as you need to fasten it. Okay, then come over to this one on this side. Make sure you lock it in the screw. Start slow until it goes down tight. Okay, then you flip back over here. Makes kind of a silly noise when the clutch locks up, right? So again, you just want to kind of go back and forth all the way up till all these pieces are fastened. Then when you're all done, we're going to take this and we're going to flip it up. Caden, come on around here. And we'll let you kind of steal the show here for a second. So you want to start with this one. So let's get it locked in the fastener first, and then put your other hand up here, up top. Start nice and slow, and the screw will kind of follow the opening that you already set. Yep, now you just want to make sure when you get down into the opening that stays perpendicular along with the screw. That way it doesn't slip out of that screw head. So you got to keep constant pressure until you hear the clutch slip, not the bit slip. All right, let's try another one. So notice he's getting it locked in first. Start nice and slow. You can speed it up as you go. Try it again. There we go. That's what we want. Can everybody hear the difference between the clutch versus the bit slipping? You can see that bit kind of spinning too. So you just want to make sure that the clutch is slipping, not the bit. Make sense? Everybody feel pretty confident? All right, let's go to work. We've got 2 of these set up here, so we'll have this one set up over here.